So my journey, I always had an interest in finance, and so I knew I wanted to do something, in that field. And so when I was in high school and even in college, I would just actively just call random advisors and ask to shadow them. Right, I wanted to learn, hey, what do I have to do to get into this career? And what I learned in doing that is when someone is um, actively trying to learn and actively trying to grow, people see that and they love that and they will pour into you.
Right.
And I was able to get some great mentors that allowed me to now have get into an internship program um, with the current firm that I'm associated with. And after that internship program, I worked my butt off and was able to go full time and build out my own practice. And now today we have a team of five, and we're green and growing.
That's-
It's not classified, so I'm 24 years old.
You're 24 years old. You have a team of 5 people. You've been able to stand up an organization that you're working with.
Hmm.
How did you do that? Like you just walked through these steps so quickly that I still feel like the person who is going to listen to this is not going to be able to get the steps and what is taking you to be where you are, right? So I want you to break it down a bit more and help us to understand what has it taken for you to come here or to this point, navigating all the challenges of being a young person and not having the experience and sometimes wanting to just have the instant gratification type of life because you're young and be able to do it.
So I think it starts with a very important question. And I was posed this question, and when I was first asked this question, I didn't have an answer. And it took me a long time before I could generate an answer. But the question is simply, what do you want?
Mm, what
And the thing that I've seen pretty consistently with people who are successful and that have accomplished a lot in their fields is that they're very clear on that, right? They're very clear on what they want and what they want to build. And again, this is something that I have to really give a shout out to my mother because every year at the start of the new year we would do vision boards.
mm,
And when I was younger I thought they were lame, but now as an adult in my business, we're all about vision. So our team, we have vision meetings once a month where we're sharing
mm,
our visions. And I think it's very important to do that. It just starts with
mm,
a piece of paper, just listing out what are things I want. Hey, I want to be healthy, right? I want to be, this, right? It's just list out the general things that you want. And then from
right.
there, go into detail. And what's great is that once you have all that stuff down, you're now able to reverse engineer and figure out what you have to do today to get there. And what's funny is, again, essentially as a planner, that's what I do, right? I simply
Mm,
want to know what someone wants, and then we'll be able to leverage tools, tactics, and strategies to get them to know what they should do today to achieve those goals that they want to have. It's the same thing. And again, this is all stuff that I learned. It was not things I had figured out from the start, but it's just about being clear, being intentional on what we want to have and who we want to be, and and just be able to view that every day.
wow. What do you want? And I see you, Kwame Sarkodie, welcome. But what do you want? Actually, that is a very powerful question that we have to ask ourselves as young people, as anybody. Just what do you want? Even at this time, what do you want? What do you want in 10 years? What do you want in
Mhm.
5 years? That's a good question to ask yourself. Wow. Well, we'll go and think about that.
Mhm.
As we were about to talk, I called my high school freshman, they call it. And
Mhm.
then I called the seventh grader and I told them I'm talking to Archie. So what questions do they have for Archie? And they
Mhm.
asked a few questions that I thought was amazing. So I'm going to ask you some of them. But
Okay.
or the question they want to ask you is, what helped you to stay in school, right? And get motivated all through the time that you were in school? Was it the what you want, or was it being told what to do? Because I'm at that point with them where they feel like, oh yeah, you're telling me to go to school, but school doesn't really do much for you, and all those good things that come with teenage years. Yeah.
For me, it was my parents. It was my
Mm,
parents. Them believing in me, and I think it just took a lot of just self awareness on my part to look around and see that all that my parents have sacrificed for me. And who am I to waste that sacrifice, right? To come here to the United States, right, when they had nothing.
Mm.
The ancestors before me, right? I'm meant to carry that on. So I want to be a steward of all the blessings that I have. So I want to make sure that every day I'm living that out and doing things the best of my ability, right? Again, we can fail. Failing is something that can almost hold us back, right? We have a fear of failure. But the
Mm.
reality is that people who win fail more than people who lose, right?
Absolutely.
Winners lose more than losers lose, right? We at
Mm.
least just have to try and give effort and control what we can control. And again, I didn't have this figured out, but it just through just constant just meditation with myself, prayer, self reflection, I was able to just be clear on that, right? And knowing that I want to be a steward of my blessings, a steward of my parents, and to honor them. And yeah, again, I'll always take an opportunity to thank my parents. I'm not sure if they're watching right now, but it's I would not be here without them, without their belief in me, without their um, not them always putting me, putting pressure on me. I think sometimes we can run away from pressure. I think there's obviously a way to apply it in a sense. But for me, I'm so grateful and I'm so blessed that I had that, right, to keep me on the straight and narrow. Because I would not be here where without my parents and without all their efforts into me and all their prayers of me. I'm sure that they would say the exact same thing.
Amazing. So actually, I think you sound too wise, and Dr. Vivian said wise words, which is exactly what I was saying. Helen is welcome. Helen was saying that being a good steward of the blessings that you have. Yeah, Dr. Vivian is watching for your parents, is what she said. So
And again, that piece is so important, right?
yeah,
Especially you talked a little bit about entrepreneurship
yeah,
before, and as an entrepreneur, you have a lot of autonomy,
yeah.
right? You have a lot of free time,
Mhm.
right? But again, you have to pay for that in a sense. You have to be a steward of the autonomy before you can truly enjoy that, right? I was just sharing how I work on Saturdays, right? I'm that's me being a steward of my autonomy,
Right. Wow.
or a steward of our blessings.
A steward of your. So, did you understand that when you were growing, like in your teenage years? Did you really get that? Because you talked about the pressure and how your parents would give you pressure to keep you on the straight and narrow. And I know sometimes when you apply the pressure, our teenagers are saying, "Oh, that's too much. You people are too old school." Did you feel all those type of emotions? And how did you manage that?
Again, so for me, it wasn't something that was figured out in my teenage years. It probably for me took my second year of college, where I think I was able to really piece together all of these thoughts and then
Yeah.
just start going.
Mm.
And again, that's just life experiences and I just understanding just as young people, we are millionaires, right? We have so much time on our hands. Warren Buffett is in his 80s, I believe. I'm sure he would give some of his billions of dollars to be 24 years old again,
Oh
right?
yeah.
To have that time.
Hmm.
And so for me, again, I think time in itself, age is a blessing. Being young is a blessing, right? To be able to have that. And I think obviously we can make mistakes and learn from that, but it's even more powerful if we can learn from the mistakes from others, right? And just grow, right? That's how we can take things to the next level.
Amazing. Amazing. Actually, this question was actually something I wrote down before you said what you said, but you had said how your parents had been a great source of motivation for you. My daughter asked me this question, and I'm going to actually say, who else apart from your parents? And she said, make sure you say apart from the parents, because I know it will be parents, but who else was such a great motivation to you as you were younger and as you were coming up? I know the parents are going to be a strong pillar in this one, but who else did you look to? Because I think there's always someone somewhere, maybe you did not know, but you read about, that motivated you. Who was that, or who were they?
Yeah. So I think what that speaks to is being very careful who we surround ourselves with, right?
Mm,
Because we as humans are the average of the five closest people around us, right?
yes.
So I mean, the reality is that if we are spending time with people who aren't motivated, who get in trouble, who don't care, right, that's going to affect us, right? And conversely, if you spend time with people who are motivated, who get good grades, who work hard, who give the effort, that's going to again seep into us. And I call it I call it osmosis, right? Just to
Mm.
learn, you can learn just by being around people, right? That's the
Right.
power of mentorship, right? Is to just learn by being around someone to kind of
Mhm.
soak that in. And so I think it's very important. So again, for in college, for me, a big person was my then girlfriend and now wife, Sarah. She was someone that was a very high achiever, a very hard
Mhm.
worker, and and so I really wanted to honor her, right? Because she's someone that always tries her hardest, always gives effort. So to be with her, I'm someone that needs to carry that same effort. I don't want to be the one
Mhm.
that is negatively affecting her, right? I want to be where
Yeah.
we're at least here or like on par with that.
Right. Awesome. Awesome. Well, the parents are here. Abba is saying so. Abba is here now.
Mhm.
But no, that's a powerful thing. I like how you said it. Like we are the
We're the
sum,
average, yeah. We're the
we are
average
the
of
average
the
of the
five closest people
people
around us.
that
Yeah,
are around us. So that's a good thing. Think about it. Who is around you? Who is talking to you? Who is influencing you? That is really what is shaping a lot of the things about you and motivating you to do the things that you do. Whether you believe it or not, you are taking a lot of cues from them. And that is
absolutely.
really good. You know, another question that the kiddos had for you, and I'm going to ask it for them, is how did you keep God as priority as you were growing up in your youth? How did you keep him? Because it's a challenge, you know. It's like, okay, well, am I going to church for my parents? And you know, we start talking like that as young
Hmm.
people. So how did you keep God priority for you growing up?
Again, so I would tie that back to who we surround ourselves with, right? If we surround ourselves with people who are very secular and who aren't godly and aren't believers, again, that's just naturally going to seep into us. So I think it's just being intentional with who we spend time with, right? Because each second that we have is so valuable, it's so special. And again, I think just being with my parents. My mom is a very God fearing woman, same as my dad, and so we would have prayers that we would do daily. We would do devotionals. We would do vision planning together. All that was tied back to faith. So
Mm,
everything, every goal I had was ultimately tied back to the faith that we had in God. And we'll talk more about goal setting and kind of where that fits. But I
mm,
think it goes back to having that identity of something that and I think also just the powerful thing as well that I heard is that excuse my language, but the definition of hell is going to heaven and being the person that you should have been.
you have to say that
Right.
again because I don't think I've heard that one.
The definition of hell is
Mm-hmm.
going to heaven and being the person that we could have been, the father that we
Mm,
could have been, the
mm,
husband that we could have been, the friend that we could have been, the son that we could have been, the
wow.
believer that we could have been.
Hmm. Amazing. I have to
But
let that.
yeah,
I have to let
yeah,
that sink in a bit, right?
yeah.
So going to what did you say it again? You have to say it again.
The definition of hell
Mm-hmm.
is is meeting the person that you should have been, right? Had you maximized everything around you, right? It's meaning that your full potential, you at your best, right?
Mm,
The best possible father that you could have been, the best possible husband you could have been, the best possible son you could have, best possible student you could have been, the best possible friend, and where you took that.
wow. So that is, I mean, the definition of hell, if we were to put it that way, is to
Hmm.
get to that place where you meet your best you, the
Hmm.
best version of you, and you're
And you're
like,
far away from that person.
and you're so far away. You know how if we are going biblical, you say that it's like you are gnashing your teeth. You're
Yeah.
seeing what you could have done, the best believer that you could have been, the best father, the best whatever you could have been, and you just didn't do it.
Hmm.
And now
And
you're
the
faced.
fruits of that, right? The relationships that we had with our kids, right? The
Mm,
success that we
mm,
saw professionally, right?
amazing.
That's painful.
Wow. I don't remember which book it is that I read, but it was one of the books that he talked about, it's starting with the end in mind, right? And,
That's the seven habits. Hmm.
the seven
That's one of the
habits.
rules. Yeah.
But there was one of them that he said, you have to imagine your funeral. And then, people coming, and then what would they say about you? And you were sitting there and you are listening in on your own funeral as it's playing out? Like, what are
Mm-hmm.
the things that you would like to hear? And what are the things that, as you're sitting there now, that you will hear?
Yeah.
And I think that is so important, that we start looking at who we really want to be. And I like how you said at the beginning, the very core of you is what you try to define as. That's amazing. Wow. Well, let's ask another question from my kiddos, and I'm sure a lot of, if you have questions and you're on here, you want to ask it, ask, and let's get it, answered. But how do we lead ourselves as young people, right? And I think one of my kids had asked, so can a young person also be a leader, and how does that look like? So I think actually this is really in your court.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, within my practice, I'm obviously the boss, and I also serve a leadership role with our firm as one of our directors. Um, but one thing that I learned is that even before we're in those official titles, right, we're all leaders. Right, we all have
Mm,
the ability to positively impact someone. And here I kind of dive into some of the things I've seen, but I believe a big part of leadership is in this building trust and establishing trust with
yeah.
anybody. And so the formula that that I've heard that I love is trust is
Mm-hmm.
equal to reliability plus credibility
Mm.
plus intimacy
Oh my
divided
goodness.
by self-orientation. Right.
Okay.
So trust is equal to
Uh-huh.
reliability
Yep.
plus credibility
Okay.
plus intimacy divided by self-orientation. So I'll break down each component, right? So trust.
Okay.
So reliability, that simply is doing what we say we're going to do, right?
Mm.
If I say I'm going to be here at 9 o'clock, I'll be here at 9 o'clock, right? If I want to go even better, I'll be here at 8:55 or
Correct.
8:50, right? Doing what we say we're going to do. That's a way of establishing trust, right?
Wow.
If you know someone that every time you ask them to do something, or every time they say they're going to do something and they do it, right? I'm sure you would trust that person, right?
Absolutely.
So that's a huge part of building and establishing trust, right? Doing what we say we're going to do and
Mm.
sticking through and following through with that.
Mm.
And every time that we don't do that, the reality is that we can lose trust that people have in us. So it's crucial to be intentional with the trust that we're building with everybody. So it's always important to show up and have that and carry yourself with that reliability of I said I'm
Amazing.
going to do this, so I'm going to do it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's amazing how you put it. And I know there are other definitions you have to get to, but
Hmm.
reliability with trust and just being able to build that into yourself as a young person, because a lot of people just discount it, like, oh, I said it, but I couldn't make it, it's nothing. And we forget that every time we do that, we take away a little bit of trust from that relationship, because we said we were going to come, we did not show up. We said we are going to commit to this, we did not do it. And then gradually we become just what it is that we are at a core, which is not being trustworthy. And sometimes that looks like, oh, I mean, aren't you taking it too far? I mean, this is really, I'm a young person, allow me to just but what you're saying is that for us to be leaders, which all of us can be, there's a factor of trust that we have to build consciously, like intentionally. Yeah.
Absolutely, right? Because if you're going to run a race with someone, you have to know that you can trust them.
Mm.
You have to know that you
Mm.
can trust them. Again, and reliability is a big part of that, right?
Yeah.
Titina, would you ever want to have a doctor that wasn't reliable,
No.
that was always late to every appointment, right? That
No.
always put the wrong prescription that they were giving you?
No.
You wouldn't trust them.
No.
So it's so important to do what we say we're going to do. Very simply.
Mm.
So one, I think that it's being mindful of the things we commit to.
Yeah.
But two, also, hey, if I'm committing to something, I'm going to do it. Right? I'm going to be reliable in that sense. I'm going to follow through.
Mm. What about credibility? Does it matter? Like, I'm a young person. I mean, how what does credibility have to do with me being a leader or being able to do something meaningful?
Hmm.
What is credibility?
Credibility is extremely important. I think it's something that is going to give someone ease, right?
Mm.
Imagine again, now you go into the doctor's office and you see the person has, a plaque from a medical school when they have all
Mhm.
these awards. It's going to give you comfort, right? Okay, I'm
Yeah.
dealing with someone that knows what they're doing.
Yeah.
To even take it political, a lot of people did not have trust in our former president because he'd never been in a role as a president in politics,
Right.
in
Right.
government. So it's like, what experience do they have? Right? How are they credible to be in that position? So I think
Mm-hmm.
it's important to always grow, to always seek knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
For me, if I'm sitting in front of someone, it's important for people to know that again they can trust me, right? So I want to be credible. I want to know that I have all the facts right, right? I want to know that if they are sharing something with me, I'm going to use that knowledge and best put them in the position to succeed and to go to their goals. And that again is getting rid of ego, right? If I don't know something, I'm going to be upfront, let people know, hey, I actually don't know that, but I'm going to ask a colleague and see if they know, versus just going along with it, right? That all ties back to credibility, right?
Mm.
Credibility is a big component in trust.
Amazing. So what you're saying is, even though you are the manager and the director of this new organization you have, you're still learning, and you told me you are doing some exams and all that. So even though you get to a certain level, you don't outgrow learning
Mm-hmm.
as a person of who wants to be a leader.
And in any profession, you're going to have what's called CE, right? Continuing
Mhm.
education. That
Mhm.
is the board that oversees whatever profession you're in, saying, hey, we just want to make sure you still know what you're doing, just to
Right.
be careful. I remember when I this probably was in middle school or something. My dad, he was a physician, and he had to take board exams. It's like, wait, what? You're already an MD. Why do you have to do this over again? It's like, it's CE, it's continuing education. We have to do it, and I have to do that as an advisor all the time. Every 2 years, you have to take tests to certify that you're still that you're credible to be in your position.
You're
Because
credible.
without that, it's hard to trust someone if you don't know, you're not fit for that role that they're trusting you to be in.
Wow. So anyway, just to for those who came in late, I see Adelaide on there. I see Millicent and Tijifa, you're on here. And all welcome. Jemima is on there. Welcome as well. But just to put it in context for those who missed the earlier part, so this is actually under. He is 24 years old. Okay, so we said that the age wasn't classified, so we can share that. But so and he is he is leading himself. He started his financial business, and he has a team of 5, and he's continuing to grow, and we are just learning some of the things that he's done and he's learned over the years. And I think it's a beautiful journey for us to see and learn as well. How can we continue to grow and lead ourselves as young